How do you guys feel about the police? Obviously, as black men, quite often we hear the conversation is, do we feel safe? You know, what are our views? So yeah, how do you guys feel about the police?
Boy, where do we start? So I'll start by talking about, I was at the March for Chris Kaba on Saturday, and I feel like it's very interesting what the police do when obviously the eyes are on them, and I feel like they've learned a lot of their lessons from 2011 in regards to how they deal with protests and peaceful protests. I was at the march and I could see the police actually trying to be, well, quite accommodating in an aspect in how they were giving out chairs to people, for his family when they were trying to sit down, and it was like, you know, this is a cynical point of view, but they are now trying to, you know, de-escalate situations when the cameras are on them, not when the cameras are off them, of course, but when the cameras are on them. And I think, you know, we can see that they're obviously a little bit more, how can I say, what's the word here I'm looking for, accommodating and nice to us when we're doing our protests, but on a normal day they're still the same old police. 10 years later, 11 years later, another part of South London, the same issues, I should say, another part of London, the same issues now come up. So we had Mark Duggan, 2011, killed by the police, shot by the police in a car. And then we have 2022, we have Chris Kaba, shot by the police in a car.
What was the exact story? Because a lot of people messaged me on like, Sean, are you coming to the march? I said, look, I don't just jump on the bandwagon. I don't know what's happened. I haven't had the time to read into it. So can you explain a bit about the Chris Kaba?
So from what we do know, we don't know everything because they haven't released the body cam footage. What we know is that Chris Kaba was driving a car. ANPR picked it up as a suspicious car that I think had been flagged as firing shots before, or there were weapons in there, not on that day, but on a separate day. Asked to stop, he didn't stop, and driving down a very narrow road, they performed what we suspect is an illegal maneuver that they should no longer use. Boxed him in.
I've heard boxing in is illegal.
Yeah, boxed him in and shot him through the windscreens, what I've heard, and killed, and he died. One shot, one kill.
So why did he refuse to stop?
Well, I mean, I guess it goes to the whole thing of, do you feel safe when the police are there? I wouldn't feel safe when the police are, if the police stop me. And if I have a prior history, I don't have a prior history with the police, but if I had a prior history with the police, I'd be a bit more apprehensive.
So would you, if it was you in that example, in that situation, would you stop?
I would stop where there's cameras, where there's people, where there's a lot of people.
So how would you be able to, at that moment in time, look and see where there's cameras on in that road or that street?
I'd look for a high street. That'd be my first thing, to be on a high street where there's enough bystanders to see what has happened, and then it's not just my word against theirs, because my word might not be the word that gets out.
But then couldn't that be quite disastrous if you're going to wait to hit the high street? Let's say exactly what happens to Chris Kaba happens to you, and I'm not justifying the police's action by any means at all, but I think sometimes as a community we need to be really careful about our opposition to the police, right? Obviously there's a deep history, you know, you've got the sus laws, you've got so much more, but I think for myself, when I've been stopped by the police, right, I've only been stopped twice in my life. Like, I'm super lucky and I absolutely recognize that as a privilege. When I got stopped, the officer said, oh, we need to search because in this area there's crimes. I gave him my stuff and he looked at me shocked. I felt like he was expecting resistance. Whereas with one of my other friends, he always resists the police. And everyone's got their own decisions to make. I just think, at what point could we make our own lives easier when we understand that we can't change the police? Jules, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think the police definitely haven't. I think the police definitely have an image problem, and you know, I think there's a lot of our problems with the police as a community are evidence based. I mean, I've been stopped 4 times by the police. You know, like I've had very bad experiences, good experiences, and you know, I won't tell that story now. But I've lost my train of thought. But no, essentially, I think wait, sorry, someone else go. I've completely lost my train of thought.
I think it might be easier if you give us an example. You might as well give us one example of your experience with the police.
Well, yeah, okay, sure. We were laughing about this the other day, but the first time I got stopped and searched in Camberwell Park when I was only 9, you know what I mean? They made me take off my shoes. It was raining. My socks were wet. Everything. It was a whole mess. And I think growing up, I never looked to the police to do their jobs or to solve the issues that they were meant to solve. I think it's easy for us to be like, okay, police good, criminals bad. A lot of the quote unquote bad criminals were the people who instilled genuine like morals and stuff around, like, because they were the ones around me. And I'm sure, you know, we can relate to people who grew up in these sort of areas. It's not as simple as, oh, the police are the good guys and criminals are the bad guys. And when it comes to the point where just being a criminal is enough for people to justify, Chris Kaba's there. Like even if he was driving away from the police and didn't stop because he was committing a crime, he still didn't deserve to die.
Absolutely.
He could have robbed a bank. He still didn't deserve to die.
Same with George Floyd. When
exactly.
People,
of course.
Said George Floyd had drugs in his system, the counterfeit cash. He doesn't. There's no idea that supports that he deserved to die.
Yeah, I think that's what people need to remember.
Yeah, I think they're mutually exclusive.
Yeah. But at the same time, those who are becoming activists for these sort of causes will heroize these figures, but they don't need to be heroes. They can be imperfect like the rest of us.
And
they
I
can
think
be criminals.
Chris Kaba, unfortunately, of what's happened to him. Obviously, I don't know enough about his history, so I'm speaking from ignorant point of view to some regards. But he's going to go down in history now as this immortalized figure that died at the hands of the police, and people are going to remember the marches and the protests. But look, let's be real, D'Angelo. From the community we're all from, people are part-time black. People are part-time people are part-time politically black. When it takes a death or something to happen is when suddenly people jump out and they march out. I think unlike other communities, we need to have a more of a consistent basis to prevent these things. And I think what happens too often is we have separate organizations, separate individuals, all these cultural leaders. No one comes together to harmonize and sing from the same hymn book. And I think that's something that we need.
And my question is, I completely agree with you. The energy always needs to be there, and that's something that they said on the march. It shouldn't be flashpoints, because flashpoints are something that the police can see. That's what people can see, and they can say, okay, they'll have their 2 weeks, they'll have their 3 weeks, and then things will go back to normal, and we can do it again. I completely agree.
Because I often say, if I was to be the commissioner of the police, I'll just say, listen, these black people are going to protest for 3 weeks. Listen, we'll be done with them, man, afterwards. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
we've got to think about something. What's going to create long-lasting change? Chris Kaba shouldn't be another person alongside Mark Duggan and all these people that have died at the hands of the police. When are we going to police our own communities?
But how so when you say police your own communities, what do you mean by that? Is in regards to getting energy out there, or like what policing our own communities, is that what's that direction
so
towards?
I think there's a guy, I forgot his name, but he runs like a community patrol, and they look after the community. So when I forgot the name of the guy in Mitcham who kidnapped the girl. He tried to kidnap the young girl. They created this kind of like community patrol.
Yeah, I think they're called they call it 3 Fs or something like that.
Something like that.
I've heard about them. Yeah,
we need something like that more for our communities, because I think if we have people that we can look up to and we can idolize, and we know we're going to be held accountable by people who look like us, because people say representation matters, right?
Yeah,
that is something that's going to be so important for us. We can police our own communities. We have enough people who are unemployed. We have enough people who don't do enough. Why don't we find resources to put it all together? But people forget, being black as an ethnic group is massive.
Of course, it's not a monolith at all.
It's not a monolith. I think, because I often have used in the past the argument about the Jewish community. So they have the Shamra, which the Hebrew Guardians in North London. They look after one another. They essentially look after their community. We could have that, but the Jews are a smaller ethnic group.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
And it's true. We couldn't replicate exactly what they may have in area to London and Golders Green or whatever, but we can mimic some of their cultural pillars of well, how do we, even if it's making a partner with all your friends and maybe some family, whether it's helping. Well, we have things like youth clubs and everything else, but specific community groups for our community, and that could extend to things like policing or education.
The thing is, we've got the community groups, we've got all of that. Youth clubs are closing down. At what point do we not just say, yo, D'Angelo, Julian, let's go out there and look after our community. Let's get some people on board who really love their community and want to protect them.
Yeah. I will say, not to cut you off, I think broken systems create ceilings for solutions. Wow. So when yes, we should police our own community. Yes, we should come together in that sense. But I think until we start to address like policy issues, or like the media can be kind of an extension of the system sometimes, or an expression of it. And when there's a headline saying black on black crime, that's a problem. Do you know what I mean? So,
but don't you think, right? And I think often see this with right-wing politics, and I think this is one of the few things I agree with. Family is the greatest buffer against government. I'm not saying it's this be-all and end-all, but it's a great foundation. And family can be your extended family. And I think even thinking about the African proverb, a child that's not embraced by his village will burn it down to feel its warmth. How many children now are burned in society or doing kamikaze missions because they don't feel love at home?
Yeah, it's true.
Or they don't feel loved by their surrounding environment.
Yeah. Well, it's a huge social indicator for serious youth violence, like same with things like domestic abuse, like violence in the home often leads to violence in the streets, for example. And I agree, family is everything, psychologically, economically, everything. But I still think, about a broader conversation of policy and governance and what that looks like.
Definitely. No.
I think we're going into some very deeper things. I think we need a longer conversation for that one, don't we?
Yeah.
Well, listen, D'Angelo, you give us a final point.
My final point is, I believe, if we're going to talk about the police and black people, is currently black people do not feel safe, or the majority, we're not monolith, as you said, do not feel safe around the police. We need to have better community relations within ourselves and also with the police, and that comes from one, having conversations and not using force.
Hey, thank you for taking time to watch that video. Here at the Common Sense Network, we thrive on exposing you to different ideas. If you're someone who likes ideas, you like learning new things, hit the subscribe button now and turn on notifications so you're first to hear when we have a new video out.